He swore he'd never sleep with her, but that night she made him weak. The rain was coming down hard that night, a cold, endless drumming on the metal roof of the outpost. Commander Rian Vale sat alone by the window, watching the water snake down the glass like molten silver. The storm outside echoed the chaos inside his mind. He'd sworn to himself, sworn to command, to duty, that he'd never let it happen. Not again. Not with her. Captain Elira Soren was the kind of woman who could command a room just by walking into it. A veteran pilot of the Galactic Legion, half human, half Syrian. Her alien heritage gave her a sharpness that was almost predatory. Her skin glimmered faintly under certain lights, like silver dust scattered across flesh. And her eyes, those pale violet eyes, seemed to see through armor, through words, through him. They had fought side by side through 2 campaigns, saved each other's lives more times than either could count. They shared everything but the one thing both pretended not to want. Until tonight. The outpost was empty, every soldier gone after the evacuation order. A single transmission had been received. All personnel to retreat to base Ares. Sector 12 compromised. Rian had stayed behind to finish sealing the archives. Elira stayed too, because she never left him alone when the danger was real. When she walked into the dim-lit command room, her flight suit was half unzipped, exposing the black undershirt beneath. Her hair, damp from the rain, clung to her neck. "Still working?" she asked, voice soft but edged with exhaustion. "Someone has to make sure our history doesn't burn," he muttered without looking up. She leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. "Rian, the Legion doesn't care about our reports anymore. They're pulling everyone out. You know that." "I care," he said. "Someone has to." Silence stretched between them. Only the hum of power cells and the distant thunder broke it. Then she said quietly, "You don't have to keep pretending you're a machine." He looked up finally, and there it was again. That look. The one that reached past the uniform, past the duty. The one that threatened to undo him. "Elira," he said, standing. "Don't start this." "Start what?" she asked, taking a step closer. "This." He gestured vaguely between them. "Whatever this is. You know the rules. You know what happens if command." "Command is gone," she interrupted, her voice rising. "There is no command. There's just you and me and a storm that might bury us both by dawn." He opened his mouth, but no words came. She smiled faintly, though there was no humor in it. "You swore you'd never sleep with me. Remember? You said it after Vaughn's Ridge. Said it'd destroy the team, destroy us. You were right, maybe. But that was before we lost everything." She walked past him now, brushing against his shoulder. Her scent, metal, rain, and something faintly floral, hit him like a memory he didn't want. "Elira," he said again, lower this time. "You don't have to want this," she said, glancing back at him. "But don't lie to me and say you don't." The lights flickered from the storm, plunging the room into momentary darkness. When they came back, she was closer. Her hand rested lightly on the desk beside his, her eyes searching his face. He'd resisted before. On long deployments in cold barracks, during nights filled with the hum of alien stars. He'd told himself it was discipline, that if he ever gave in, he'd lose the last piece of himself that still believed in order. But tonight there was no order left. She reached up, brushing the wet hair from his forehead. "You always try to save the galaxy," she whispered. "But who's going to save you?" Something inside him broke. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was just the unbearable weight of survival. He caught her wrist, stopping her hand, but he didn't let go. "Elira," he murmured, voice hoarse. If we do this. There's no if, she said. And then she kissed him. The world fell away. He forgot the storm, the legion, the promises carved into his conscience. There was only her breath against his skin, the warmth of her body pressed against his, the tremor that ran through him as if his heart had finally remembered what it was for. They stumbled toward the cot in the corner, neither speaking. Words had always failed them when it came to this. He remembered flashes, her hand at the back of his neck, the taste of rain on her lips, the sound she made when he whispered her name like a prayer. Time lost meaning. There was no before or after, just now. When the storm began to fade, they lay together beneath the dull hum of dying generators. Her head rested against his chest, her skin luminous in the faint light. Tomorrow, she said softly, we'll probably hate ourselves. Probably, he agreed. But not tonight. He smiled faintly. Not tonight. Silence again. But it was a different kind now. Softer, filled with the kind of peace that only comes after surrender. Outside, the wind began to quiet. The rain slowed to a whisper. For the first time in months he felt still. He'd broken his oath. The one thing he'd sworn he'd never do. But as she drifted to sleep beside him, her hand over his heart, Rian realized something he hadn't before. Maybe some promises were meant to be broken. Especially when keeping them meant losing the last part of yourself that could still feel alive. When dawn came, the outpost stood silent under a gray sky. The evacuation ship would come soon. They would leave, fight again, survive again. But that night, just one night, they had been human. And that was enough. The storm had finally passed. Only the soft hiss of the rain remained, whispering against the roof like a fading memory. The outpost was quiet, too quiet. Rian woke first. The dim morning light crept through the cracks in the shutters, tracing silver lines across Elira's bare shoulder. She slept beside him, her breathing steady, her face softened in the rare peace of rest. For the first time since the war began, she didn't look like a soldier. She looked a human. Fragile even. He sat up slowly, the weight of the night pressing down on him. His oath. His discipline. All the years of saying no. It had all shattered in one rain-soaked heartbeat. And yet he couldn't regret it. Not when she stirred, opened her eyes, and smiled faintly at him. "You're up early," she murmured. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "Guilt." He hesitated, then shook his head. "No. Just thinking about what comes next." Her smile faded. "When the ship comes, everything goes back to normal. We'll pretend last night didn't happen. Will we?" he asked quietly. Elira looked at him for a long time, her violet eyes unreadable. Then she reached out, tracing the scar along his jaw with a gentle finger. "You swore you'd never sleep with me," she said softly. "Guess some promises aren't meant to survive the storm." He caught her hand and pressed it against his chest. "Some promises shouldn't," he replied. Outside, the clouds began to break, revealing the faint shimmer of sunlight over the horizon. The galaxy would demand them again soon. Orders, battles, blood. But for one fragile morning, they were just two people who had finally stopped running from what they felt. And that was enough.